Welcome, everyone. We are going to get started at 6:05.
Bienvenidos a todos, vamos a estar iniciando a las 6:05.
Welcome to the Oregon Psilocybin Services public listening session.
Bienvenidos a la sesión de escucha de los servicios de psilocibina en Oregon.
We're going to begin at 6:05, so thank you so much for being here, and we'll get started soon.
Vamos a estar iniciando a las 6:05, así que vamos a estar iniciando prontamente.
Welcome to the first of two Oregon Psilocybin Services public listening sessions this week.
Bienvenidos a la primera de dos sesiones de escucha de los servicios de psilocibina en Oregon de esta semana.
Today is Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025, and it's just after 6 p.m. Pacific time.
El día de hoy es 3 de junio del 2025 y justo estamos pasadas las 6 de la tarde en el estado de Oregon.
This session is being recorded and transcribed.
Esta sesión está siendo grabada y será transcrita.
Simultaneous Spanish interpretation is provided and accessed by clicking the interpretation button, which will appear below.
Esta sesión tendrá interpretación simultánea al español, la cual será accesible por hacerle clic en el botón de interpretación abajo.
And so the interpretation button will soon be activated if you don't already see it, and should be found at the bottom of your screen. We invite all participants to click on that interpretation button and choose either English or Spanish. And this ensures that everyone will be able to hear all the comments, whether provided in English or Spanish. American Sign Language is provided during this session. Real-time captioning is also available by clicking on the closed caption or CC live transcript button, or by selecting Show Subtitles. We want to welcome you all and thank you for being here today. We are excited to have this time to learn from you and acknowledge that it takes time and energy to participate in public forums like this. So thank you for your engagement. And we offer public listening sessions for all members of the public to provide feedback on the administration of the Oregon Psilocybin Services Act, ORS 475A. We want these sessions to be inclusive and accessible, and would like to remind you to please remain muted until it is your turn to speak. We'd also like to request that participants remain off camera until it's your turn to speak. And this helps with bandwidth and the file size of the recording when we load it onto the website later. This public listening session will be for an hour and a half, and it will close at 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. And the OPS team is here to listen, learn, and take notes. We will not be answering questions during this listening session, but we will collect questions, and a summary and Q&A document will be posted in the weeks that follow. And just a reminder, this is not a forum to discuss legal matters. At this time, I'd like to pass it over to Policy Analyst Jesse Sweet to provide us with a quick overview of our rulemaking process.
Thank you, Emily. The Oregon Psilocybin Services Act was passed in 2020 and is now codified in Oregon statute as ORS 475A. We engage in rulemaking to administer the statute, and there is specific legal process that state agencies follow for official rulemaking. This public listening session is not part of that process. Because OPS is dedicated to public engagement, we want to receive feedback from the public prior to rulemaking. We expect to open and update certain administrative rules every year. The rulemaking process is informed by recommendations from the Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board, input from rules advisory committees, and comments received during public comment periods. It is also dependent on whether OPS has the authority, capacity, and resources to implement the changes recommended. We are currently accepting applications to serve on our 2025 rules advisory committees. If you are interested in applying, you can find the you can find the application on our OPS Administrative Rules webpage, and the deadline to apply is June 16th. The RACs will meet. RAC is an acronym for Rules Advisory Committee, in July to provide input on draft rules. After the RACs provide input, we will publish revised proposed rules and ask for public feedback during the public comment period between September 2nd and 22nd. Public hearings are scheduled for September 16th and 18th. New and updated rules will likely be adopted in October and will be effective January 1, 2026. Any suggested changes or proposals that fall outside of ORS 475A cannot be considered within the rulemaking process and would require a legislative change. You can find a link to our current administrative rules on our website and receive updates about how to engage by signing up for our email distribution list. Again, this public listening session is not part of the official rulemaking process, but instead an opportunity for members of the public to provide feedback prior to rulemaking. Thank you. Back to you, Emily.
All right, so we're just about to open the session for public comment. We ask that everyone remain muted and off camera until it's your turn. To get in line to speak, please try to use the raise hand button, and we will do our best to call names in the order that hands are raised. If you're participating by phone, you should be able to raise your hand by pressing *9, and then you may need to unmute yourself by pressing *6. Please plan for just one opportunity to speak, and then if there is extra time toward the end of the session, we may have flexibility to hear from people again. We will continue to prioritize hearing from people who we have not yet heard from. And we want this to be an open and inclusive space. We request that you keep your comments to 3 minutes so that we can hear from everyone. And we'll be using a built-in timer to help you stick to the 3-minute limit. When you have 30 seconds left to speak, you will hear a chime sound, and then at the end of your time, we'll play the chime again. And I wanted to mention that when we were testing the timer in Zoom before the meeting this evening, we noticed that it wasn't very loud. So if you have any trouble hearing it, I might also just jump in and let you know that your time is almost up. The chat box is available to message hosts. So if you are a nonverbal communicator, we invite you to send your comment to the Zoom meeting host, Meredith Ryder. She can read your comment during the public listening session, and just keep in mind that these comments should also fit within the 3 minutes of allotted time, and all contents within the chat box are public record. We will not tolerate any comments that involve the use of profanity or threatening remarks. We ask that we all respect each other on this call tonight. And as a reminder, this is a forum for providing feedback on the OPS model and not a forum to discuss legal matters. When speaking, please speak clearly and at a regular speaking cadence so that the interpreters can simultaneously interpret your comments. Okay, at this time, I'm going to stop sharing the slides and open up the public listening session. And again, to get in line to speak, you can raise your hand by clicking that button. And I see that Tyler, your hand is up. Go ahead.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. We can hear you.
I got a lot to say. I'm going to try to fit it in as much as possible. The key points here are safety and providing the correct direction for the future generations, not looking at this from a for-profit standpoint at all. If the OHA is basing their decisions off a for-profit standpoint from licensing and taxes, then you're all looking at it clearly from a false perspective. That is simply a repeat cycle of the pharmaceutical industry, as it is clear the harm that they have caused many lives in society over time in horrible ways. That goes as well for the supporters of psychedelic mushrooms. If the potential harm is overlooked and especially not spoken about publicly that can be caused by psychedelic mushrooms, then you're creating a space of mind to mislead people and the children that don't know any better. Kids eat mushrooms to trip. That's a given. They don't eat them to heal. It's a substance that is clearly abused by children and can cause harm beyond belief to the remainder of the child's life. And many of them many of them would never tell their parents they ate mushrooms the night before or whenever, which is the cause of them, which is causing them that harm. If they would even know it was mushrooms that was causing their psychological stretches or distortions at times. Many may likely be afraid of judgment by their friends. We need to guide the future children in the correct way without holding of such truths as responsible adults working in this industry. And for the adults that are able to get psychedelic mushroom treatment in a licensed facility, they don't all need to be given some immediate high dose. I don't know what they have going in these facilities, but I have clearly seen some have had bad trips, which shouldn't be an issue under the right guidance and environment. That's just sad. You need to look at it from a spiritual perspective, as in what the divine is trying to show you from those experiences. The lady that stated they were up to something was probably experiencing bad energy due to the people being in it for profit and afraid of the outcome of what she was experiencing. That's terrible. There needs to be insurance that the provider holds that if someone is to have a bad trip, the insurance will cover all costs of their healing in a safe environment of their choice, which may and likely need to be a professional environment where they're able to feel comfortable, relaxed, and a warming perspective of life to make sure the trauma they have just experienced doesn't add to the trauma they were trying to heal in the first place. As mentioned before, do not take, well, I have some other things, but do not take my words lightly. The insurance I speak of needs to come directly from the state, not an insurance company, as it needs to be capable to provide the location of the individual patient's choice specifically, not only to be provided by a facility that is able to accept insurance. If the OHA has an issue with this, then it clearly shows the lack of care and ability the mushrooms are able to have in negative effects. There shouldn't be a high amount of people that need the insurance in the first place if the provider is truly trained and capable of providing the experience. So why not answer me that question when and if your mind is in disagreement in any way with this ability the state has to provide of such thing, being it is to be making profits from this industry. This is a must. It is not a question. You're Are the people who obtain license required to have had personal experience with psilocybin mushrooms? As mentioned, this is not a psychological perspective of healing, it's spiritual. Someone with no personal experience surely has no place to be working with patients to guide and heal them. There is too much room for error within the healing session or at a later time, as well as potential lack in actual healing ability that the provider is capable of achieving within a session, especially offering a second dose of patient's choice during the session. For those that have had no experience, have no clue what they potentially can experience. Someone truly trained and familiar should be able to read the energy and through observation, verbally and psychologically, determine if it is correct choice, necessary, or beneficial. Don't be giving out licenses just to anyone that comes with their pocketbook open that's able to provide a facility and staff. These things must be taken into serious consideration for this to work properly. If you truly want this to work, if you this to work and to keep this program running, you need to look at the reality of in full of all necessary truths and fact of this substance and how it works. I know you're working with people that have been dealing with this for many years, but I know the push to get this program running can create a mind space for these people themselves to not at times focus on the things that truly need to be focused and completely necessary. I obviously have my concerns of how the program is being ran, but I'd like to put my trust in your organization and people involved with experience that are taking all things and actions into consideration, perform correctly, and lead by example to this country. I'd like to add Oregon is already being spoken about as introducing this industry incorrectly. For the reasons it's being spoken about such ways, I cannot confirm. Potentially from younger and mid-age people that want it more freely legalized to purchase in dispensaries. I personally am not in support of that at this time or may ever be. As people need to realize mushrooms are not something that is needed long-term or even often. Once finding balance, if one chooses to consume mushrooms to find that balance, there's also non-psychoactive mushrooms that will help the mind's stability. Once finding that balance, it needs to be focused upon also and are very beneficial to one's health in a whole. But we must hold the realization that we have led this industry into this country and also have the ability to correct what is necessary to be honored for our efforts and realistic truths within this industry to more of an audience than the people that partake in psychedelics or have current interest in its abilities to heal. We must look further out into the future of this industry and impact upon society by wanting to correctly lead by example, as previously stated. The things I have mentioned are important to bring that reality and future to fruition. We have
Thank you,
legalization. So
Jordan.
now, what's that?
We are at 3 minutes, and
Okay.
there's likely time to probably speak again, but just
Okay.
we'll need you to
Okay.
pause. Thank you
All
so
right.
much for coming prepared, and
Yes.
um, stay with us if you're able, and we may have time to hear from you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Asta,
Hi, can you hear me?
we can.
Okay. Thank you. So I want to comment on the proposed licensing fee increases. This morning I was told by OHA's DOJ attorney that this is not the place to speak about my related litigation, but it's my understanding public comment can't lawfully be restricted just because an issue overlaps with pending legal matters. So I'm choosing to speak anyway. Instead of following Measure 109 and ORS 475A, OHA acted outside its authority by funding, drafting, implementing, and then retroactively trying to codify a secret interagency agreement that unlawfully transferred psilocybin licensing authority and OPS designated funds to the Higher Education Coordination Commission without any statutory basis. OHA used its general fund to pay HEC staff to process psilocybin training applications and used the OPS budget to pay DOJ attorneys to draft the unauthorized scheme, investigate related complaints, advise on its enforcement, and defend it in court, all without any lawful authority to involve HEC under ORS 475A. I've requested an independent investigation into OHA's misuse of funds related to the HEC interagency agreement, and I encourage others to do the same. All available evidence also suggests HEC was double compensated and that diverted funds may have resulted in profit. So if the OPS program is underfunded, a clear remedy is to recover those misused funds from HEC and redirect them to the program the voters actually approved. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Anthean Institute?
Hi, it's Michele.
Oh, hi, Chief.
I don't like the idea of our license fees going up. I'll just say that. I also want to know a little bit about schools, reciprocity for Colorado licensure. If somebody is coming, say they are going to a Colorado school, now they have a license in Colorado, it's a year down the road and they want to come to Oregon and get licensed, but they went to a school in Colorado that wasn't HEC licensed. Are they going to be allowed to come in to the state and be licensed if they went to a not? I guess that's what I am trying to ask. Thank you.
Thanks. Heidi.
Hey, I'd like to change our focus a little bit to what actually happens with clients at a service center. I'm Heidi Venture. I'm the owner of Vital Reset Service Center in Hood River, Oregon, the only rurally located service center in the nation, as far as I know. I just want to talk about two things. Well, three things actually. Let me start by saying the Psilocybin Service Centers Collaborative, which involves almost every service center in the state, has sent the OHA OPS 8 things we'd like changed, and I'm in support of all 8 of those things, but I'm only going to talk about a couple of them right now. One is changing the rule around the duration of administration sessions. When we started, everybody had to use their fertile imaginations to think about what things could go wrong and how could we make things go right for clients. And while we were imagining that, this idea came up that a person should stay at the service center a certain amount of hours based on how much psilocybin they've taken. In practice, what's happened is that those limitations, saying that a person who's taken, say, 50 milligrams has to stay for 6 hours, just aren't working. People who take 50 milligrams at our service center are usually on antidepressants, and they need that 50 milligrams just to get liftoff. They often have a short lift and then a short journey and a quick come down. So having them stay 3 hours maybe after they've come down from their experience, or even 1 hour or 2 hours, it feels like we are their jailer. And it feels like that to them too, when we have to keep saying, the rules say you have to stay. I'm so sorry. Let's do some art. It's really hard to understand why we would have to keep that rule. And I have heard, but I haven't read because I don't have time, that Colorado doesn't even have these rules. They've looked at our system and said, oh, that does not seem to be working. So that's one thing I'd like you to change, is just eliminate those duration limits, because they just don't make sense. And at this point, most of the facilitators we work with know what they're doing. They have had a lot of experience and they know what these doses are like with people. The second thing I'd like to talk about is kind of related. It's also for the clients. I'd like you to remove the maximum dosage cap for psilocybin consumption during an administration session. And this is something that's been well documented by underground guides, people on antidepressants or who have ever done antidepressants often need a larger dose to get liftoff, and they often need a larger dose than 50 milligrams. Can you imagine coming from New York to have a psilocybin experience for your depression? You take the full 50 milligrams and you don't even get liftoff. And us knowing that if we could just give you 20 more milligrams, you'd probably get liftoff and you'd have a better chance of treating your depression. I personally required a very large dose in the underground of psilocybin to treat my depression. And it's the reason I'm able to even be here talking to you, is that I treated my depression with, it was probably like 70. I mean, it was a big dose. It was a very big dose, but I'd tried a lot of smaller doses and not gotten off the ground. So those are the 2 things I'd really like you to change. The duration of administration sessions, that should just be eliminated completely, and remove the maximum dosage cap. And I will let somebody else talk now. Thank you.
Thank you. Marlon.
Hi, good evening. Thank you for having this time for us to talk. I am a licensed facilitator here in the state, and I also work at a service center as well. Um, I am a part of Heidi's group that has written up a number of rule changes and sent them to you. I'm going to speak to something that's not part of that one right at the moment, and that is the paperwork necessary around microdosing or small doses that are subperceptual in nature, that are probably less than 2.5 milligrams of psilocybin. The way the rules of the state work, there is no distinction between that small dose and something larger that actually does put a person into an altered state. And so the paperwork is quite laborious. when it comes to it, the way the rules are written. There is certain paperwork that must be filled out for each and every session where some amount of substance is created, which is the transportation plan, the client support plan, the consent for supportive touch. Um, I think I'm missing one. Apologize up front on that one. But it is very onerous to get all of that paperwork done 3 times a week. If your client's coming in however many times a week, that they have to fill out that amount of paperwork every time. And the paperwork has to have a 24-hour time limit on it, where you have to do that paperwork 24 hours before the administration session. So basically, you're tying up 6 days of people's times in order to do the paperwork, come in for the admin session, go back, do the paperwork again, come in another day. And it's just very onerous and extremely time consuming to get all of that done and make sure that you have all of that paperwork done correctly. So I would really ask to have OHA look to simplify some of that paperwork in redundancy, or not make all the paperwork repeat the same thing over and over and over again, because most of the time in microdosing sessions, those documents don't change. They are exact copies. The only thing different is the signage date on them. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Tim.
Hey, hello. Thank you for taking my comments. Um, so my name is Jim Yu, and I am the manager for Vital Reset, Psilocybin Service Center in Hood River. And there are obviously, I've consulted with Heidi Venture, and there's a laundry list of things that we would like to go through, but I'm only going to talk about one right now. And that is the restriction on service centers uh, not being able to do any other events. As we know, the market is starting to tighten up a little bit. I think there are certain service centers that may be closing. And what we are finding is that it is really challenging that when we do not have a journey or journeys going on in the service center, to be able to recapture or generate revenue from our service center, unless we can maybe host some events or invite people in to do a tour. And maybe those may consist of families that want to come visit. One thing that we're running into is that, well, one thing that I can look at is, I think a lot of the psilocybin um, services are kind of based on the cannabis program, because you're kind of inventing it as we go along, but we are not dispensaries. So there's no possibility that when we're not serving a client that we're going to be passing around product or having anything out of our limited access area or our safe. So we would just like to have a little bit more flexibility with how we can use our space, so that if we do not have any journey scheduled, we do not have any reason to go into our safe to access any product, and be able to host events that may include families, or events that might include having a glass of wine. If we're going to do invite people over, obviously having beverages and snacks is a huge deal, and we would like just to be able to incorporate having a beer or a wine while they're at the service center, and not worried about going foul of any of the regulations. So with that, that's my comment on that particular subject, and thank you for your time.
Yeah. Phyllis. Um, Phyllis Nasta?
Now, can you hear me?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, well,
Thank
thank you.
you.
I'm just I'm a therapist, but I'm not involved with the psilocybin. I just simply wanted to say this has been very enlightening. I have followed the whole psilocybin movement since before when they were coming out with petitions, and I find it very exciting. But I think it's very poignant what that lady said from the Mount Hood Center. I don't remember your name, that about the 50 milligrams being a cap. I did not know that. And I have friends who live in all parts of the United States and have talked about coming here. One wants to try to deal with a very lifelong cigarette addiction, for example. And so it's enlightening for me to hear that maybe she would spend all that money and time and come here and not be able to have just enough to get her where she needs to be. So I just as a citizen, I guess I'm just saying that I do support what that person said. I think it's very important. And the other idea of maybe being able to have events at the centers. I remember somebody at some point, I went to a legal webinar or something, and they said that the centers were not allowed to have offer other services such as massage therapy, acupuncture, or counseling. And that was also very surprising to me. So if there's anything in the works to allow the centers to provide other services like that, it seems to me a part of a holistic, treatment to be able to have other therapies. And I was surprised to hear that they weren't going to do that if that's still the case. Okay, thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you. Be friend.
It's actually not B.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
But it's her computer. Hi, I'm Angela Carter. And I just, with the passage of the, is it 2387? Is that the bill that just passed on House Bill 2387? Yes. So the allowance of dual licensure of other providers as psilocybin facilitators. Um, I'm excited about that. And I can also imagine that it's going to be a little bit of an administrative, I won't say the word, mess. And because it's not just y'all making the rules, it's also the medical board and the board of social workers and the board of naturopathic medicine, all of these different boards working independently to build their administrative rules seems like it could be really difficult, and may end up creating conflict between rules. And some boards are going to have one idea about how their providers will act within their scope while providing psilocybin services, and others are going to have a totally different idea. So I wanted to suggest a joint rules advisory committee with each of the boards, if those boards are willing, um, inviting some of their board members to the RAC, and also inviting people from the community of service centers and facilitators, so that there can be crosstalk between the groups and they can start to sort of understand what the whole like some people are not going to even know on those boards what the psilocybin program is about, and they really need to know that in order to make appropriate rules. So I don't know what it would take to do joint rules advisory committees. I don't know if that's something that happens or has a precedent. But because there's so much heightened awareness and concern around, you know, providers who are doctors and therapists uh, interacting with psilocybin, and the federal regulations around those providers using a Schedule One substance, or talking about it. I think it would be good to have those board members and the executive directors of those boards hear from this community, the psychedelic support community, to understand better, so that they can make better rules, and so that the rules can overlap and not conflict with each other. I would be happy to reach out to my board and get them connected. I've already spoken to them several times about the program. And so they're aware, and I think that there are other providers who have spoken to their boards. But if a liaison process would be of any use, I mean, I'm just going to send a letter to my board and say, hey, would y'all like to talk? But I think for providers who are in those communities who have overlap, starting conversations with your boards about this and getting them into understanding this process would be helpful. I guess I'm talking to OPS, but also everybody else in the room who might be dual licensed, and yeah, send some emails. That's it. It's good to see you all. Miss you.
Thank you. Jaylee, or I'm sorry, I'm gonna wait to call on you again. I know you spoke once before. Let's give it just a little bit of time here, and then we can open it up for second comments. I'm sorry, Jaylee. And Meredith, I see your hand is raised.
Thank you, Emily. Just a minute. Okay. My name is Meredith Ryder. I'm with the Psilocybin Services section, and I'm gonna read a comment that I received in the chat from Michelle Glass, who's unable to be on to speak. And I'm going to be looking at my other monitor because that's where I've got their comments. So just a minute so that I can get all of them up here. All right. And again, this is from Michelle. I'm a licensed facilitator. I want to echo both of Heidi Venture's requests. One, to eliminate the required hours that clients must stay at the service center based on dosage. And two, to eliminate the 50 milligram cap for dosage. And then I have a little bit more from her. So just let me scroll down. And the additional comment was, I would love to see HB 2387 extended to include those who have other trainings and certifications who operate under ORS 675-825-4A. Like myself, like Michelle. Being unable to provide my usual services within my OPS license has been very unfortunate for many clients who would have preferred that it was an option, especially in preparation and integration sessions. Many clients are now turning away from psilocybin services in Oregon because of the non-medical, non-therapeutic approach, opting to find options such as Colorado. Would you please consider adding alternative non-licensed counselors and practitioners to also provide their services within the OPS license? This may include alternative counselors, Hakami practitioners, and others. Given the permissions granted for Indigenous healers to offer their skills within the OPS license, I believe it is essential we include others of us who have been deeply trained and provide tremendous skills. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to keep this session open until 7:30. And we'd like to invite anyone who hasn't already spoken to raise your hand when you're ready. And we welcome all voices and invite anyone who is considering sharing feedback and want to just let you know you don't have to have prepared remarks. If you have something that you want to add, we'd love to hear it. And in a few minutes of holding the space open for those who we haven't heard from, we'll open it up again for people to share comments a second time we have them. Erin.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
So my name's Erin Pappas. I'm a licensed facilitator and the director of services at Drop Thesis in Bend. I'm also a registered nurse with 18 years of clinical experience. I wanted to talk today because I believe deeply in the healing potential of psilocybin when it's offered in a safe, structured, and compassionate setting. I myself have facilitated over 250 administration sessions since this program began, and have witnessed firsthand profound and lasting transformations. I really care deeply about the integrity and the long-term success of the OPS program. Having worked within the system since its launch, I've seen where the current rules are very effective and where they also unintentionally create barriers for clients, practitioners, and small businesses. I want to ensure that the future rules uphold the spirit of Measure 109 by supporting safe, supported, and equitable access to psilocybin services. Safety is always paramount, but we also must revisit rules that unintentionally create barriers, especially for clients accessing subperceptual doses. I agree with what Marlon said. I myself have submitted a proposal for a revision to the rule requiring a prep session at least 24 hours prior to administration for doses under 2.5 milligrams. These amounts are subperceptual, used for microdosing protocols, and it would honestly better serve both clients and providers to allow the preparation session to occur on the same day as administration. Many of our clients are exploring microdosing for anxiety, depression, or trauma resilience, and they require flexibility. The current rule adds scheduling and financial barriers without offering a corresponding safety benefit for these very low doses. I support maintaining the 24-hour rule for very high dose journeys, but let's apply a more nuanced standard for low dose work that reflects the actual risk profile and respects clients' needs. In addition, I'd also like to advocate for more flexibility in how licensed service center spaces can be used when no psilocybin is being administered. These are beautiful, purpose-built environments designed for deep healing. Allowing service centers to offer additional wellness services when psilocybin is not in use would support financial sustainability and deepen community connection. It would also extend the impact of psilocybin healing by surrounding it with continued support, education, and belonging. This program is the first of its kind. Let's make sure that it works not just for those with resources and time, but also for working people, caregivers, and those historically excluded from wellness and mental health care. Let's protect what makes this work sacred: safety, trust, and access. Thank you.
Thank you. We recognize that people are coming to this listening session with different perspectives and experiences, and we'd especially like to hear from anyone who we haven't heard from yet. If you are in the Spanish room, we'd love to hear from you if you have any comments. And we'll keep the space open for a few more minutes before we invite those who would like to speak a second time. Augusto.
Hola, ¿cómo te va? Me
Hello,
llamo Augusto,
how are
soy
you?
de
My name is
Argentina,
Augusto.
de la
I'm
ciudad
from
de Ushuaia,
Argentina, from
bien al
Ushuaia.
sur de la Patagonia,
I
muy
live
cerca, a mil
in
kilómetros
the
de
south of
altitud.
the Patagonia.
Lo que quiero comentar más que nada
I
es
want to comment more than
explicarles
anything,
que desde
really,
la
is to explain
Argentina
that from
estamos en un
Argentina,
proceso
we
todavía
are in a
que no
process
llega a ser inicial.
where it's
Por
not
lo tanto,
initial yet,
trato de informarme
but I'm still
desde
trying
la
to
página de
maintain
Bailo,
myself informed from the
todo lo
Oregon
relacionado sobre
website
la
and
psilocibina,
everything
las
related to
licencias. Sé que hay como
psilocybin,
4 tipos de
the
licencias, por lo que
license
pude
and types
leer,
of license.
y de a poco voy
From what I've been
tratando de
reading,
recabar mucha información como para
I've been
después
trying
aplicarla
to
desde
gather
mi ciudad
information
y desde las
and use it so
organizaciones
I
que
can apply
tenemos
it in my
con
city
muchos
with the
cultivadores de
organizations
psilocibina
that we have
para poder
with
aplicarla en
psilocybin
un futuro y que
cultivators and
sea
apply
mucho más
them
fácil para
in the
todos.
future. In that way, in the
Acá en
future, it'd be
Argentina
easier for us
no
thanks to this
toman
information.
como
Here in
ejemplo los
Argentina,
países más
they don't take,
desarrollados, por
as
ejemplo,
an example,
Estados Unidos,
countries that are more developed, for example,
Holanda,
the United States,
Alemania, etcétera,
Holland,
como
Germany,
para
etc.,
aplicar lo que
and
ya hicieron
to kind of
en esos
apply
países
what they've
y
already done in those
tratar de
countries
lograr
and try to
ese resumen de muchos años de trabajo
manage to get
y
a
aplicarlo
summary of
en
many
Argentina sin,
years and
sin
apply it
tanto,
in Argentina without,
digamos, no
let's
me sale la palabra,
say,
pero
I don't know the word
esfuerzos
exactly,
de
but
muchos,
without,
digamos, productores o
you
personas
know, that
profesionales que tengan ganas de
um,
lograr una licencia en Argentina. Em,
um,
la idea desde nosotros, desde
strength
el grupo
that these
que
workers
maneja
require because the
la producción
information
de
has been
hongos
gathered already.
con psilocibina,
But
es lograr en un futuro
in the
que
future,
todos los
what
centros
we want
centros
to
médicos
manage to
de las
reach as a
ciudades
goal
puedan
is that all these medical centers in the
utilizar
city,
en sus pacientes
that they would have
psilocibina
access and
psilocíbina.
would be able to use
Relativamente nosotros acá
psilocybin.
en Tierra del Fuego,
Um,
que es la provincia,
and just
en
as a
la ciudad de
data
Ushuaia,
here in the province
es
in
una de las
Ushuaia,
provincias per cápita
this
con más
province is
personas
per
con depresión.
capita has more people
Porque acá es
with depression
similar a, no igual,
because
pero similar
it's
a Finlandia,
similar, not the
que
same, but
en
it's kind of
invierno tenemos
similar like
4 horas de
Finland
luz
because in the
y en
winter we
verano
have
tenemos
4 hours of light. In the
casi
summer
21
we have
horas
almost 21
de luz,
hours
digamos.
of light.
Así que
And
te podrás
so
imaginar que
you can
el uso de
imagine
la psilocibina, desde mi
that the
experiencia, que ya
use
tengo
of the
varios
psilocybin, from my experience,
viajecitos
because
de 3
I've
gramos,
done
que siempre
some
lo utilicé
trips on
para
3 grams, which
un
I've
poco de
always used
introspección,
for
de conocerme a mí mismo,
introspection,
conocer
used
qué es la
for
vida, qué hacemos
getting to know
acá
myself,
y
getting
bueno,
to know
me
life.
sirvió un montonazo
And
y
it's
espero
worked
que a mucha
wonders for
gente
me and
le
it's helped me
pueda
a
servir.
lot. And I'm sure that it will
Eso es
help
todo
many
por acá.
others. That's all.
Muchas gracias por
Thank
el
you so
espacio.
much for the space.
Gracias, Augusto. B, hello. Go ahead.
Hi, it's actually B this time, B friend. Um, I wanted to chime in on the time caps for journeys and connect it with profitability, which is ultimately the feasibility of this whole program to stay in place, and safety. So easing these restrictions, especially on the lower dosages, where having those time limits where people have to stay there for a certain amount of time really isn't adding safety to the journeyer's experience, is going to help service centers be more profitable, which is going to put more money into the coffers of the Oregon Health Authority, which is going to make, this actually long-term sustainable. So training on sobriety and the travel plans are the things that are actually increasing safety for clientele. So if we have elimination or lessening of those time caps, and you have the facilitators trained to understand, just like bartenders have to understand when someone is capable of adhering to their travel plan, that's what's going to help overall. So that's all I wanted to chime in on today. Thanks.
Thank you. This session will remain open until 7:30 Pacific time. And at this time, I invite anyone who maybe has something they'd like to add to their first comment. You're welcome to raise your hand one more time. And just remember that we are going to prioritize new voices, and we will use the timer just to make sure that we keep time. So Tyler, go ahead.
Well, again, thank you for allowing me the chance to finish my statement here. Let's continue. We must look, or the things I have mentioned are important to bring that reality and future to fruition. We have legalization, so now we lead by example by openly speaking about the full and true reality of how these things work, the healing perspective as well as potential harm and risk. So the potential patients that are unfamiliar are properly made aware, as well as the youth are to be honestly and correctly informed, so they do not make a mistake by potentially being introduced to it at a young age, which could be harmful to their current life or future. By providing insight of such nature, we can help people to become conscious of these truths in full, so there is less harm done in the future to all peoples. As also, parents that are unfamiliar and may have a child that consumes mushrooms, being that it's going to be more introduced nowadays and more spoken about, even between the youth, that they can become aware of their use, or if they become aware of their use, do not cause distance between themselves and the child due to becoming upset or overly concerned. I've experienced this happening. That if the child does have a bad experience, the parent does not panic and is able to provide the correct guidance and understanding to the child, so the child does not become more traumatized by the experience. We need to educate the public so they can properly educate the children, as well as, if necessary, the parents have a safe and comfortable location, to be sure the child receives the proper care that is and or may be needed for them to recover, so the experience does not take hold upon their mind and or future psychologically. Please take these things into serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. Shasta.
Hi. So I just wanted to add, I'm a religious practitioner participating in this commercial licensing system only because no lawful alternative currently exists. And as the OPS continues to expand rulemaking to create legal pathways for medical and clinical providers, I urge the OHA to recognize that the First Amendment requires a constitutionally protected pathway for religious organizations as well. To my knowledge, all stakeholders, including those operating under sincerely held religious beliefs, have been forced into compliance with commercial licensing requirements, despite constitutional protections that are meant to prohibit this. I respectfully ask that the creation of a distinct legal pathway for religious providers be created as a priority moving forward, particularly given the pending legal action.
Thank you. Jaylee. Oh, Jaylee, you're on mute. I don't know if you were.
I undid the wrong thing.
Oh,
I
great.
wasn't looking. I don't have my glasses. All right, here we go. I feel like a lot of the conversation just leads to the need to start really the important data to track is the dosage and the results and the timing so that when we make these decisions, we can make them based on data. I think that's an important piece. I sometimes think that people get too much. I think 50, I mean, we all have different experience. I don't think you can compare psilocybin analyte to underground when they just did grams because there's no comparison to 25 milligrams of analyte in grams of mushrooms. It's all over the place. And the underground was fully based on grams. So I feel like we have to base it on these numbers that we're working with. And I know everybody's different and we all have different experiences, but in 60 facilitations, I haven't had one non-responder. I know it happens, but I'm curious how common it is for that to happen. And maybe there's other pieces at play that they have to relax more and maybe trust you more. Like sometimes people rush through doing the minimum, just what the state recommends and not beyond that. And I think that makes it really hard to let go for some people. So I wouldn't personally say rushing to allow for 70 because I think that could easily be overdosed and too much more isn't better. I'm complete. Thank you.
Thank you. Friend, I see your hand is up.
Yeah, befriend again. I just had one more thought, piggybacking on Angela's suggestion about members from other boards. I know that the Oregon Health Authority isn't necessarily going to have like more time and budget to do something like this, but you could help that process by prioritizing having members on the upcoming racks from other licensure boards that are going to overlap. And that's a way that you could actually actively get some of this cross pollination that's really, really going to be necessary when the dual licensure is allowed. So that's my thought. Thanks.
Thank you. So we'll keep this listening session open to the scheduled end of 7:30 Pacific time. And we welcome all commenters, those who haven't spoken already. We'll prioritize, and then anyone who wants to speak another time are welcome to raise their hand again. And I do believe we have someone who we haven't heard from yet, so I'm going to go to Cesar first.
Hello, actually,
Hello.
this is Lorena Huerta Brambila, and my license is currently expired as a facilitator. I am a massage therapist, sobadora, here in the community, and I try to get into this field to assist the Hispanic community because of the great need. It has been very challenging for me to be a facilitator and to be able to provide this medicine to the people. It is very expensive and people really can't afford it. So I'm really not moving forward with this. It's been a great loss economically in my family. It's been a struggle to get to where I've been. And I truly, from my heart, want to move forward and be a bridge to my community. And so I'd love to know of any resources or any way that I can um, get assistance or be directed to where and how I can connect, because I have a numerous amount of people reaching out to me knowing that I'm already educated on this, but where and how can I provide this for especially the Hispanic community? Thank you.
Thank you. Heidi.
Sure, I'll talk. First, I want to say I really agree with Marlon on the paperwork for microdosing. Oh my gosh, this is an area where at that dose we could really help a lot of people, but what we have to charge for our time, and we always have to have two people in the service center. We've got to have the facilitator and the service center licensee representative. It just makes it way too much. And then having to do all that microdosing paperwork correctly is just a nightmare. Also want to say yes to the two people who talked about using the service center for other events. When there's no psilocybin available, I mean, we got a safe, we got a locked room. The safe's in a locked room. We can lock it. You can make it a rule that we have to keep it locked. We've got a camera in there. There has been no instance documented of mushrooms escaping into the black market. So what are we worried about? What problem are we solving? So that's two things I want to talk about. The other things have to do with the dose, the booster dose. And the booster dose is important because you don't really want to give somebody who you don't know enough about, which we can't really know how they're going to respond to the mushrooms. You don't want to just start them with 30 or 35. You want to start them at a low dose. You want to start them at 15 or 20 and see how they do, and then you can up the dose. So one of the problems with this is that the rules require them to purchase exactly the booster dose that they think they're going to need. And it's okay if they purchase the amount that they need, but there are times when the facilitators that work with us say, I want to switch this person from B plus to the honey product. The honey product seems to get people lift off it better if they're on antidepressants. So they want to change that. Well, sorry, you bought the B plus. You can't have the honey product now. That would be against the rules. So would really like to be able to see people be able to just say, I'm buying 50 milligrams. And then with their facilitator, they can discuss what that second booster or even sometimes a third booster is going to be, what product they're going to use. I mean, maybe chocolate would work better for them. I've heard facilitators tell me that the chocolate helps people get liftoff. So they're having people buy that way, powdered for the first half and chocolate for the booster. And it's just kind of, it doesn't have to be that way, and there's not a real good reason for it. I hope I've got enough time to talk about the second thing, which is the booster dose again. Somewhere in the middle of the first year, y'all came up with this rule that the booster dose had to be locked up outside of the limited access area, that locked room with the locked safe. So now this dose is in a little white locked up, medicine lockup thing in the room with the facilitator and the client. And when the client needs a booster, they've got to get the licensee representative to come in, unlock that thing, let them get their dose, pour that into a cup if they're going to have tea, bring them some hot water, or maybe they go out to the kitchen area and make their own hot water. It's such a pain. It's such a disruption. I mean, all they really want is what they really want is for you to just put a little drop of water in their mouth that has that extra dose in it and let them go on with their journey. They don't want to be disturbed into being their own cook and bottle washer at that point in their journey. So I'd like to ask you to go ahead and keep that thing with a little locked box in the administration room, but allow us, people who know how to keep these mushrooms safe and have had no instances of escape, allow us to keep that dose in the administration room. And the way you can do this is just by changing the definition of ownership. So you've said that ownership means possession, that the client has to have possession, and you're calling possession having this locked box in the room with them. They can't even get it, but you're calling that possession. What if we just say they have legal ownership once they've paid for it and we've put their name on it on a little sticky tab? Not hard, easy solution, and it would be a better experience for the client. And that's what we want. We really want our clients to have a better experience. I think the last thing I want to say is there have been a few people who've said something about this being a capitalistic money grab kind of thing. I don't think there's a single service center in the state where everybody is getting paid for their work. I think every single service center has somebody working as a volunteer. This is not a huge moneymaker. If that's what you want it to be for you, don't get into this business. I would say of all the service centers, almost every one is in this to help people heal from their mental health problems and help them have a chance to have a better view of themselves, to love themselves more, yeah, looks like my 3 minutes are up. I can see it in Emily's eyes. Thank you.
Thank you. We have another 10 minutes or so to hear from folks. And again, you don't have to have prepared remarks. We welcome all voices and would love to hear from you if you have any feedback or comments, questions. Shaylee, I'm gonna wait a moment just because I think that you've had 2 turns. So to be equitable, I'm gonna just hold the space and see if there's anyone new before calling on you. Thanks for your understanding. And Marlon, I believe you've only commented once, so go ahead.
Hi. I'm going to jump onto Heidi Venture's comment about the money-making aspect. I think there is a common belief that because it is a Schedule I substance, therefore it is in demand in the black market, and therefore what we're doing is just money making by providing these services. And the difference between cannabis and mushrooms is the fact that the experience of psilocybin within magic mushrooms is a labor-intensive effort. Most facilitators are spending between 15 to 20 hours with each of their clients in prep, integration, and the administration session. Many of them are more than that. And the people that we have found that are in need of this the most also need a lot of care and feeding to support them through this process. So even those that are getting through this process at some either reduced rate or by getting some assistance elsewhere are consuming even more time than those hours with those facilitators and the service centers themselves. And it's really important to understand that that is not going to change in this aspect, and that it is a labor-intensive effort to spend time and sit with those individuals to provide them the best possible service. So I just wanted to make that comment about the cost and the labor intensiveness of the market. The underground has cheap mushrooms out there. You just have to ask for it and find it probably quite simply. But that's not what we're offering here. We're offering a service that comes with safety, support, and care. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Phyllis Nasta?
Okay, thank you. So I know I can't ask a question and have it answered, but I believe you said there's going to be a Q&A on the website at some point. And someone mentioned that recently a law passed to allow other providers to provide psilocybin, but I don't know if I understood that correctly. So if there's any possibility of clarifying that, I would love it. I have no, the sentence went so fast, I don't know if I heard it correctly. And I just want to comment that I have a lot of compassion for the people that I've heard tonight, and I really appreciate hearing everybody. And I really appreciate your having these listening sessions, because it seems like these people are working very hard, and I had no idea about all these rules, and I can't even imagine having the guts and the wherewithal to, figure all these rules out. So I hope that, and last year I think I saw where the state government wanted people, clients to start filling out this huge form that asked a lot of personal information. And I read it and I thought, oh, I realized there was always an option at the bottom, prefer not to answer. But in this day and age of we have no privacy, I just thought that was horrendous. And I don't know why they need that, maybe for research purposes, but why are they collecting so much data on people just for having a psilocybin trip so they can, get over their depression or their cigarette addiction? So I've learned a lot tonight. I thank everybody for all the information.
Thank you. And yeah, we will be compiling what we've heard in this listening session and the second listening session that takes place on Thursday, June 5th at noon. And we will follow up. Usually takes just, a few weeks to compile a document. And we encourage anyone who's interested in staying engaged to please sign up for our distribution list. There's a button on our homepage to do that. And in a minute, I can bring up the slides and share with you our website. But yeah, if you're on the distribution list, you'll be sure to receive that summary document when it's available. So we have time for just few more comments, and then I have just a few closing remarks about next steps and how to stay engaged. And I see, Erin, that your hand is raised again.
Hey, I just want to bring up SB 303 for a hot second here. Thanks to Phyllis for talking about how uncomfortable it can be when presenting that to a client, especially with the given political climate and Doge going in and looking at things. And, our clients that report being in the queer community, having a sense that maybe they're kind of being gone after in a way. So that's one thing. Also, it's a voluntary response, which statistically is the least desirable data that you want to have, because it's just voluntary response bias. My most well-off clients will check the I don't want to answer anything. And then the clients that I give the scholarship to who are making $0 to $11,000 a year are proudly checking that box. And so it looks like we're helping all of these people who have that, but it's really because we're doing that out of the goodness of our own hearts. It's not people for who this treatment is actually accessible for. The other thing that's really skewed is that we're giving so many microdoses in addition to our macro doses. So our average consumption for a journey looks like it's 8 milligrams, and that's just not true at all. So I don't know what's being done with this data or how OPS thinks it's really going to reflect on the populations that we serve, but I just think it's really unnecessary, and it's taking a lot of manpower that we're spending additional dollars on and additional time here in the service centers to compile all this data and then get it sent over to you. And it's been a real headache.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, Heidi, I don't think we're going to have time for third comments this evening. We have room for maybe one more from anyone who we haven't heard from, or a second comment. Mason.
I'm moved by the comments about data collection that people have mentioned, and I hope that the health authority is listening to them and paying attention to current developments like the bankruptcy of 23andMe and its purchase by a large pharmaceutical company. And the reality is that the funders who contributed to the campaign to create the Oregon Psilocybin Services Program are interested in data, and they want your clients to pay to be research subjects. And so that's why the data is collected, and there's really no other reason. So I think it's very helpful for you to share the challenges that poses for you. And I hope that the Oregon Health Authority is listening because it's costing the state and clients and service centers a lot of money.
Yeah. Okay, this is the last call for anyone who might want to jump in and say anything before we close the session for this evening. We have one more public listening session scheduled this Thursday, June 5th from noon to 1:30 Pacific time. And all listening sessions will have simultaneous Spanish interpretation, as well as American Sign Language and cart captioning. And we encourage you or others who are planning to attend on Thursday to contact us about any other accommodation requests or assistance that we might be able to provide to support participation. These sessions are recorded and they will be posted to the OPS public listening sessions webpage in the coming week. And then, as we shared, a summary document will be compiled and published and also sent out to our distribution list. If you haven't already subscribed to our distribution list, you can go to our webpage and sign up and receive reminders about ways to engage. We are currently accepting applications to serve on the 2025 Rules Advisory Committees. And these committees are comprised of individuals who have different subject matter expertise, different lived experience, and who are likely to be affected by the proposed rules. And so this process is designed to include a diversity of opinions and viewpoints, and we welcome all interested folks to apply. You can find the application on our website in the administrative rules page, and they are due on June 16th. People are also always welcome to attend the meetings of the Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board. Those meeting dates and more information are posted on our webpage in the Oregon Psilocybin Advisory Board page. Their next meeting will be on August 1st, 2025, from 9 to noon, and it does include public comment, and it is recorded and posted. And then also please plan to attend our or participate in the rules public comment period that will be happening in September this year. And it does include virtual public hearings that are similar to this in a Zoom format where people can provide feedback on proposed new and updated rules. So those proposed rules will be published to our website as well as sent out. And we invite you to come back and comment on those proposed new and changed rules at that time. We hope that many of you will, come and join us in September and reach out if you have any other questions. This is our website, and our email is oha.psilocybin@oha.oregon.gov. And with that, we will conclude the listening session tonight. And again, we have one more on Thursday at noon. Thanks everyone for coming and for your participation.